knocking on my door. Well, early this morning, blue knocking on my door. They say, hello, blue, come to bother you some more. Well, now blues and trouble are my two best friends. I started playing music when I was about third grade, which in America I might have been about maybe like 7 or 8 years old. I started playing the trumpet. I played the violin first. Then I played the trumpet for 5 years in the marching band. I played the baritone. And then when I was 12, I started to play the guitar. So I'm 46 now. Grew up in the city of Denver in the state of Colorado. And no, there were no musicians in the family, but we had music. My mother had a lot of records. Yeah. It wasn't, Denver has a music scene, but my mother was a little strict, so I couldn't go to clubs and I didn't go to concerts or anything like that. So, but it has a music scene, especially a jazz scene in Denver from a long time. And my mother, she would tell me, and my father too, they would see people like Ella Fitzgerald and Duke Ellington would come through, So I was influenced by the record collection and also going to church, hearing the music in church. I started to play in New Orleans, that I was really around the history and was able to go to Mississippi and meet different blues players. And I started playing with people like Arl Burnside and Big Jack Johnson, John Jackson, people like that. B.B. King also, learned a lot from him. So that was my influences in the history of the music, as well as just my family. My family's all from the South. My sister, myself, we were born in Colorado, but everyone else is from Texas and Louisiana, and so that was a big influence as well. Walk to Wichita Falls. Well, I walk from Dallas, walk to Wichita Falls. Well, I walk from Dallas, walk to Wichita Falls, yeah. Well, I lost my baby, wasn't no walk at all. It wasn't no walk at all.
You also lived in Africa for a while. How's living in Africa?
Well, it was wonderful. I'd always wanted to go and to have the opportunity to not only travel, but to live in Africa. I lived in Cameroon. It was a great experience. And then after that, I did a lot of traveling in Mali and also in Guinea-Conakry, Sierra Leone, Morocco. I've been to Rwanda, Ethiopia. So yeah, it's an ongoing adventure. It was through doing the film with Martin Scorsese that I was able to know Ali Farka Touré well and then ask him for his participation in the Mississippi to Mali project. And the other musicians I just knew from the blues, like Bobby Rush and Sam Carr and Sade Thomas. In fact, I was supposed to play with Sade Thomas's grandfather, Otha Turner, for the recording, but he passed away maybe 2 weeks before we did the recording, and so she graciously agreed. She was only 11 years old then, but she graciously agreed to play on the record. So that's how that all happened. The last record I did, the Fulton Blues, is very much a blues record, and a lot of the topics are topics dealing with not only the history of blues, but the history of black people, black communities, then and also what is happening now as well. So I think it's very important to discuss topics in the blues and not just sing all the old songs. You know, like I heard a brother say to me that if he heard another version of Sweet Home Chicago, he would throw up. You know, because it's too much, you know, and we really, if we want to be true to the tradition, we have to talk about what is happening now. Because if you look back at the older bluesmen like Robert Johnson, they weren't singing, Robert Johnson was not singing about things that happened 20, 30 years behind him. He was singing about right now. So that's what we have to continue to do, you know.
There are some parallels between the present and the past about the condition of African American people now in the United States.
Yeah, well, I mean, we are not free in America as black people. Since we have been taken from Africa and brought to America, we still don't have rights. In fact, black people in America are the only population that don't have voting rights. Every 20 years, the U.S. Congress has to vote on the voting rights for black people. So we don't have the power really to vote. It has to be given to us still. So we're still second-class citizens. You know, and that's the thing. When we were emancipated from bondage, from captivity, from slavery, we were really just set loose. There was no legal protection. There was no thing in the law saying that we have the full rights of citizens. You know, so that's still a problem. And we see that we have a system called Jim Crow that was very prevalent in the United States. And Jim Crow still exists, but it's inside the law now. You know, and the United States is a country where you really have to have a lot of money to overcome that. If you're very, very rich, you have a better chance. But even as a black person, you don't have the same rights as a white person in America, even with a president like Barack Obama, you know, because really a lot of people that I know, and myself included, view him, he's more of a figurehead, you know, but the system of America was never built for black people. It was built for us to work for them, but it was never built for us, you know. So that's still an ongoing fight. But I'm one who I believe very strongly that for us to really be free, there has to be an opening of our minds and to expand our minds so that we can relate to black people around the world and really come forward to Africa to realize who we really are. Because if we continue to think of ourselves as Americans, we're thinking ourselves in the way that our slave masters wanted us to think. Because truly, we're not American. You know, we're Africans who have been brought to America. And if we continue to think like we're Americans, we'll be forever disappointed, you know? So we really have to come forward to a realization of ourselves as a global people. Because if you look at, say, Chinese Americans, they are Chinese. They'll say, yes, I'm Chinese, and they know their Chinese culture. But through they have not been in slavery and captivity, they have an awareness of themselves. But the awareness of ourselves was beaten out of us over many, many years and over all of the propaganda that we face, you know. So we have a lot of work to do. But really it starts with loving ourselves and realizing who we are as a global people and not constricting ourselves to this little box called the United States.
When I just come here, where are you again?
think that black music reflects the social issues affecting America today, or there is a lack of consciousness in black music?
Well, if you look at the black music that is played on the radio, there is very much a lack of consciousness. It is trash. It's like bubble gum. You chew it up and you spit it out. It's done, after 5 minutes. But the history and the tradition is very much still there, and there's many black people who still carry that tradition. But since it's not commercial, you don't hear about it as much, but it's still there, and it's really to us, my generation and those a little younger than me, to relate that tradition to the children so they can advance it into the next generation. Because if we lose our tradition, we lose who we are, and that's the same for any people. You have to know who you are to really have any chance to be free. If you don't know who you are, you can't be free.
Thank you very much, Corriere.
Thank you. Bless it.
Yes, thank you.